Welcome back inside OUA Today, everyone. Marshall Ferguson in studio, joined on the phone from our first return guest to OUA Today. She's just that talented. She's really earned this honor. Shelby Blackley, how are you this morning, and how excited are you to be the first return guest in OUA Today history?
I'm pretty excited. I didn't know I was the first returning. Yes.
Well, you're the only one that likes coming on. That's the issue. No, I played this song for you. I wanted to play in with it because even though he says murderer, it sounds like curl the rock. And you were around CIS Curling, which was hosted by the Laurier Golden Hawks last week or 2 weeks ago, whenever it was. I've lost track of time. You probably have too. The Wilfrid Laurier Golden Hawks curling team capped off a successful season under your watch, your caring watch, after winning double OUA gold in the men and the women. So, tell me about it. CIS Curling. How great was it? What was the environment like? Was it better than the Brier? Do we have any challengers coming out of Laurier that can challenge Jennifer Jones in the coming years?
I don't think any challengers are going to be coming out of Laurier, but you definitely need to look at Alberta for someone that you could definitely see on the world market in the next couple of years. Kelsey Rock is the skip of the Alberta Pandas. They're the Pandas, right?
Yes. Yeah, I believe they are the golden bears, golden pandas. I'm not sure.
Right. So
it's not OUA. Don't worry about it. You're the Golden Hawks. That's all that matters.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, Kelsey Rock is a fantastic skip. She's a 2-time defending world champion. She's been all around the place. She was a silver medalist at the Canada West Curling Championships, and she definitely earned that gold medal at CIS. She is a fantastic curler. Laurier did a good job, a lot better than a lot of people expected. Like, yeah, they went double gold at the provincials, but when you go to the CIS market, as you know, going to the Vanier, and as many athletes know, going to the national circuit, it's a lot different.
Right.
So when the women and the men from Laurier went, they definitely put up a fight. The women had a little bit of a struggle at the beginning, but they found their groove. They got their bronze medal. It's the same match that they got last year. And the men improved. The men got a bronze last year, and they got a silver this year. And they played fantastically. 3 out of 4 of those guys were named CIS first team All-Canadians. Yeah. The other guy was the second team All-Canadian. The skip played lights out. And the only reason that they lost, not the only reason, I mean, Thomas Scoffin is a fantastic skip for Alberta, but he curled 90% in that final. And if he probably missed 2 or 3 shots, and that's why Laurier stayed in it.
Yeah, I find it very difficult to think about a team that doesn't win a CIS championship, yet has the skill to become 3 of the 4 first-team All-Canadians. Like, I know that's always frustrating in football sometimes when we look at it. Guys that you know have the skill and deserve to be there, but when you don't win with that much of talent on one team, like from talking to some of the guys I'm sure you did after their match, were they just satisfied, a great year, well to put it together and all of that, or was there some frustration about how the gold medal match went?
There was definitely some frustration, but Alberta went in as the top seed, and like they don't do the whole rankings like they do for all the other teams, but you've got that sense of, okay, this team's really good, this team's going to probably try to match them, right. But Alberta came in as that team that everyone knew was going to be really, really good, and Scoffin curled 90% in that final, and you don't curl 90% unless you're almost perfect. So the Laurier boys were really pleased. They were pretty impressed with how they played. I talked to the vice, Richard Krull after. He curled pretty well too. I think he curled about 80% in that final. Yeah. And he was really happy with how he curled. He said that he hit the shots that he needed to keep Laurier in it. He felt like the boys really swept the rocks and were really in sync. And he said that they played one of their better games of the entire tournament, and he was happy with how they curled.
That's awesome. I'm glad that you were there to cover it and that you give us such insight because, I had a couple of tweets last week just saying from curling people, thank you for mentioning us. Thank you for acknowledging that we exist because it's one of those, and I don't want to say niche sports because I've said that about some different short sports before, but they're not getting people out, right? And it's nice to hear somebody who is actually interested and covered it. So, before CIS curling came, or just the week of, I guess it was, St. Pat's came. What the heck is up with Laurier and St. Patrick's Day? What is your guys' deal?
I wish I knew what was up with it, but for some reason, always in the Waterloo region, St. Patrick's Day is like that big thing. You could attribute it to the German culture because we do Oktoberfest as well. Right. And Oktoberfest is always a big thing in GW, but St. Patrick's Day just gets crazy. Like, Ezra Avenue was probably busier this year than it has been in the last 2 years, and it was cold.
Is Ezra the big go-to?
Yeah.
That's like the hub, eh?
Yeah, it is. It's pretty interesting, and they've chosen that street for a really long time. Like, I was looking through old bound copies of the Cord, and there were copies that were like, yeah, Ezra Avenue had a riot this year, and this was like 1970-something or whatever. But it was so far away, but they were still coming to Ezra Avenue because it's that street that's 2 away from the school, but still close enough that everyone can get to. And Laurier is a little different where it's such a small school. Like, we're 1 block. Laurier is 1 block.
Yeah.
So everyone is around the school, so they need that one place where they can all meet up. And that's what Ezra Avenue became. And for some reason, every year in St. Patrick's Day, no matter what the university tries to do, no matter what the student union tries to do, everyone always comes back to Ezra Avenue.
That's amazing. Some of the pictures that you put up were pretty awesome. Do you have any idea the numbers of people that came out to Ezra this year?
The Waterloo Regional Police were reporting between 4,000 and 5,000 people at its peak.
Wow.
And that doesn't include the people that went to the tent. They created this tent party to try to diverge the amount of traffic.
Yep.
But it was still absolutely crazy on Ezra.
See, if we just started serving the odd beer, maybe limiting it to 2 per person at OUA football games, we're going to get 4,000 to 5,000 inside Laurier Stadium, no doubt.
Exactly.
Right away, right? Because people just want to be a part of an environment. It's the same idea as going to an NFL tailgate. That's pretty crazy. Did you get to enjoy St. Pat's at all? I need to know real quick.
No, I didn't. I was actually working for the Cord. It's our production night on Tuesday nights, so I was actually out reporting on the lovely drunk people. If you check out, I'm going to put a shameless plug here. If you check out the last issue of the Cord, which was our St. Patrick's Day issue, we actually do this thing called Vocal Cord, where we go up and we ask a hilarious question.
Yeah.
So the day of, we did, what is the history of St. Patrick's Day, and we asked the people that were drinking. I'm not going to mention any of the answers, but you need to check it out. It's pretty hilarious.
Scott Hasty. No. That's pretty awesome. I wanted to ask you as well about the CFL Combine. I don't really want to get too in-depth with it because I'm going to talk to Justin Dunk in just a couple of minutes, but the guys from up there, Chris Aki, defensive back, 40-inch vert, broad jump 10 feet, 11 inches. Dylan Campbell, 4.57, 40-yard dash, 22 reps on bench. Why are you not testing in this kind of area, Shelby? Why is everyone blowing you out of the water up there that's wearing the Golden Hawk logo?
I really don't know. Everyone knew that Chris Aki was going to be this big star this year, and honestly, I've been covering them for 4 years now.
Yep.
And Aki really wasn't that big guy in his first or second year. Like, everyone knew that he had the stature and the athleticism to go somewhere, but he never stood out to me. But that was also because I was covering a 3-5 team that backed into the playoffs. I'm sorry, but the thing is that no one really saw Aki as that big person until probably last year when he had such a good year and he was a solid defensive back. And then people like Justin Dunk started mentioning how he is so versatile. He could play linebacker, he could play defensive back, he could play anywhere, and he would transition seamlessly. And when he played at the Combine and he tested so well in those skills, and then also he killed all the one-on-one, you're looking and you're like, wow, like, Aki has a really good chance. Like, his stock is huge right now.
Yeah.
People are going to want him.
Well, yeah, he's an athletic freak. Like, I remember Laurier came down to do the preseason matchup against us here at McMaster, and he came down and I saw how huge he was and how well he was moving, right? Because there's a difference between being a massive blockhead and being someone who can actually run. And I basically asked Coach Cameron from Laurier, I said, like, how much is he weighing? Like, what's his deal? What did he do in the offseason? He goes, man, I have no idea, but he's down somewhere around 200. I was like, he looks like he's 240. Yeah. I'm not sure what he weighed in at this weekend. I'll check real quick here, but that blew my mind that he was down around that. Also, I should mention, Leanne Osei, your outstanding woman athlete of the year at Laurier. Tell me a little bit about her because I've seen her play some hoops in the last couple of years, but she's a pretty special talent, isn't she?
Yeah, absolutely, and she's an amazing woman. The award that they give out, the Outstanding Woman of Laurier, kind of just attributes to athletics, academics, and community involvement. It's been around for 10 years now, and Leanna definitely deserved it. She actually played down in the States and didn't really like it. She came back to be with her family, and Paul Falco, the coach of the women's basketball team, was like, you need to come play for us. I know you haven't played for a couple of years, but we know that you'd be a great addition to our team.
Right.
So she came on, and she was a huge asset to them. She's such a talented person, but she always puts her academics first, and you can see that. I mean, she won the Joy Bellinger Award for the OUA and was the nominee for the CIS, and she completely deserved it. She's an A- student. She's great on the court. She's not necessarily that big points person, but there were so many times when they were playing Windsor, when they were playing against Queens in that double overtime game that Leanna was part of the reason why they were still sticking in it, why they were still getting those points, and why, she was mainly the person that was giving the ball to Whitney Eleanor for those assists. So,
yeah, I haven't had a chance to talk with you at all either about Laurier's women's basketball team and the loss to Queens in the playoffs, because that was kind of similar to McMaster losing at home to Lakehead, despite Jalissa Williams' ridiculousness. The fact that both of these teams, McMaster and Laurier, kind of in the playoffs fell apart at exactly the wrong time.
Yeah, Laurier was supposed to go far, and I think that, and all my bias aside, but I think that if Laurier was in the national championship, Windsor would have had a little bit more trouble getting that national championship. I think that they had a very seamless, easy trip to the nationals, and Laurier was the only one that was able to beat them this entire year, right?
Yeah.
So Laurier lost at the wrong time. They just did not have anything left in the tank. Queens played outstanding.
Queens got hot, definitely. Liz Bogue and Jenny Wright, they heated up at the exact right time.
They did, and they completely deserved that win. They played fantastically. It just sucks when Laurier's like, yeah, we've got this great season, best season in school history, we're going to go far, and then the quarterfinal, Queens Gales come in super hot, and they blow them out. Not blow them out, but...
Yeah, no, it was overtime, but it was very entertaining. Didn't it go to double overtime, too, if I remember correctly?
Yeah,
I was actually watching it while I was calling the Windsor McMaster men's game. As it was finishing, I had it on my computer in front of me, and I'm trying to call Chris Oliver against Amos Connolly, and what was a pretty sweet matchup in the men's bracket as well. Last couple of here for you. In 10 seconds or less, quick hitters. You said, my journalist dream is to work for @Boston Globe.
Yes.
Why?
I love the Globe. I think that they're a fantastic paper. Actually, when they were covering the Boston Marathon a couple of years ago, the bombings, they did a fantastic job. They were on it all night. They were going around the clock. They had a full stream of them trying to find the suspects. Their interactive visuals are fantastic. They do a really good job digitally. I just think that they're an all-around good encompassing paper.
Yeah,
I think to be a good paper, you need to have like the digital online aspect of it, not just the tangible print, and they do it fantastically.
Yeah, Bob Ryan as well, the sports reporter that has covered basketball and Celtics basketball for a long time. He's commonly a guest on Sportsnet 590 The Fan with Bob McCowan's Primetime Sports, and he is like the quintessential American sports writer where he talks way too fast, he has way too much knowledge, he has stories about everybody who's ever played basketball since 1972, and I love his work too. So I agree with you. The Boston Globe is kind of an exemplary work. And talking about online access as well, I'll never forget the video they posted of the Boston Common after they had found the bombers. I don't know if you remember that, but where they showed the entire Boston Common and people doing the USA chant and stuff. Very American, but I'll never forget that because that was kind of a big moment because everybody was kind of under siege for a long time. So,
and the fact that they can actually do that.
Yeah, the fact they could leave their homes. There's some pretty cool stories about people being locked up though, eh? During that, like as much as that was a terrible event and there's still the trials ongoing right now, the stories that have come out of that, of people like being locked together for 2 days and meeting new people, and I don't know. I find that kind of neat from the human interest perspective. But
for sure.
Last one for you here. Your tweet this week: you've never been to an event until you've experienced a live auction. When did you go to a live auction, and what were you trying to buy?
I feel like my tweets are the reason that I'm on the show.
No, not at all. I'm here for your knowledge, and then I just happen to find these tasty little tweets that I have no idea what you're talking about, and I need to bring them up.
Oh, that's why you favorite them. All right.
Yeah. By the way, if you get anything favorited by OUA today, it's being used on the show, just to give everyone a heads up. There you go.
All right. I'll know that now in the future.
Yeah.
So the live auction was actually at the Outstanding Women of Laurier dinner. They changed it to a dinner this year, and they decided to do part of the thing with a live auction. And this guy's voice was just so quick, and he was killing it. It was hilarious. So I'm sitting in the back, and of course they put the media like at the back. So I'm just sitting there watching, and I'm like, this guy is awesome.
Typical.
Just sitting here, I'm like, this just made the entire event. The event could end right now, and Tessa Virtue and Scott Moyer were about to talk. The event could stop there, and I would have been perfectly fine.
Hey, Tessa, Scott. Go for a walk, because the live auction just topped you guys easily. No, that's funny. At Shelby Blackley is her Twitter. Give her a follow if you want to know about live auctions and where she would most like to work. I should also mention before I let you go, I did a live auction for a television once at a McMaster football banquet.
Oh.
It did not go well. It was... I stood up there.
Quick enough.
Yeah, I stood up there and tried to entertain, and it was not entertaining at all. It's all good. At Shelby Blackley, thank you very much, Shelby. We will talk to you soon, okay?
No problem. Thank you for having me.
Thanks. Shelby Blackley of the Cord. She's the new big boss up there next year, and we'll be sure to have her back on very soon. We are going to get to the OUA Ultimate All-Star Bracket, but right now we need to take the break because right after this, we're going to have Justin Dunk on. He was at the CFL evaluation camp over the weekend. We're going to talk with him a little bit about the happenings down at eCamp. This is OUA Today on CFMU 93.3.